Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I am your host John, and today here on the channel we're going to be talking about Barry Lyndon and its brand new Criterion Collection 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't want to know anything about Barry Lyndon and you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead to that right now. So back in 1975, Stanley Kubrick, one of the greatest to ever do it, if not the GOAT, gave us Barry Lyndon, one of the greatest shot films of all time, and arguably his best film. And Barry Lyndon stars Ryan O'Neal as the title character of Barry Lyndon, even though he doesn't become that until quite a good amount of time into the film, right before the second half of this film starts, because this is a 3-hour and 5-minute epic. And the thing that always has stood out about Barry Lyndon is John Alcott's cinematography. This is one of the best shot films of all time. Every single scene just looks like it's a painting. And that's really what drew inspiration for Stanley Kubrick while making this movie, are the paintings of the time. Because, you know, there were no cameras in the 1700s. The movie itself is based on The Luck of Barry Lyndon from 1844, I believe. You know, it's a loose adaptation. One thing with Stanley Kubrick is he's going to put his own little twist on it, his own little signature. Just look at 1980s The Shining. There's a reason why Stephen King hates that adaptation and prefers the miniseries that came out in the 1990s. It's because, you know, it's more in line with Stephen King's vision. I don't think the guy who wrote The Luck of Barry Lyndon is going to be complaining, though, since he was probably long dead before this movie came out. But Ryan O'Neal plays this character perfect. But I can understand why people might not feel a certain amount of love for this movie, because this is the kind of movie that took me years to get into. This is not a movie I would watch as a kid and absolutely enjoy. In fact, I was not a fan of period piece dramas, especially of this time. It was like, you know, I'm obviously going to be more turned on by The Shining or 2001: A Space Odyssey than I am to Barry Lyndon. But as I've gotten older, I've truly learned to not only just appreciate period pieces, especially, you know, these costume era period pieces, but I actually learned to love them. I watched 1776 this month as well, and then, you know, obviously I revisited Barry Lyndon. Now, I've liked Barry Lyndon for years now. This isn't something new, but I actually truly enjoyed and loved my time rewatching this time around, more than just actually enjoying the cinematography. I've said I'm a cinematography junkie through and through. I always appreciate just these beautiful shots, and the cinematography this, like, the way they did this is absolutely incredible. Using natural lighting, the lenses had to be high speed. They actually got them from NASA, so, you know, they were never designed to be used for film, but, you know, they had to get these shots. The results speak for themselves. Now, I wouldn't say that this, in my opinion, is still the best shot Stanley Kubrick film. I still think 2001: A Space Odyssey is a bigger achievement in cinematography, because I feel like there is a lot more working against them. Whereas when you're making this film, I feel like, you know, patience was key. It took 300 days to make this film. You know, you have to make sure everything is right, especially for the exterior shots. But when we're doing interiors using candlelight, that's really hard as well. So everything just has to be perfect. And I just think you have to really be patient to get what you want, instead of, you know, when 2001: A Space Odyssey, I feel like, you know, there was a lot more working against them with the special effects, especially at the time, and for that to still stand up, I think, is an even bigger achievement. But every single one of Stanley Kubrick's films look good, even if you go back to his black and white days, like The Killing and Pants of Glory, which is still one of my top 2 favorite Stanley Kubrick films. This movie, you know, the cinematography might be the best thing about it, but there's still a very good film in there as well, from beginning to end. The character of Barry Lyndon is fascinating. This is a great character study of Barry Lyndon, the man who, at the very beginning of this movie, we find out that his father dies in a duel, and there's 3 big duels in this movie. All of them help to shape the person that Barry Lyndon, or at least in the third one, the person that he has become, and is he going to make right on all the actions that he's done? Because Barry Lyndon, he's a very complex character. We feel bad. We know that everything started, all his bad luck started at the very beginning of this movie, when his father dies in a duel over some horses. That he falls in love with his first cousin, which is just never a good thing. And of course, unfortunately, his love for his cousin, who does lead him on, I won't lie to you guys, that really leads to some more escalation when John Quint, a gentleman of the English army, shows up. You know, a real gentleman that he is, making these ridiculous faces, the actor, which is great. You know, there is some, of course, some comedy in this. This is a Stanley Kubrick film, so, you know, every time this guy's making faces, it's absolutely hysterical. But this caused a rift, because he's still in love with his cousin, but the family needs that 1500, so we're gonna make this work. So they set him up so that they get in a duel, and he thinks he's killed the guy. He thinks he's killed John Quinn, and he's got to run out of here, get out of town. He's going to become a renegade. He's got to get going. They give him $20 or whatever the $20 is of the time. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a good amount of money to set him up. Of course, he gets robbed, and now he's got to actually join the army himself because he has no choice. That's the only way. Then he ends up deserting the army after someone who was a really good father figure to him ends up dying. And then eventually he ends up with Mrs. Lyndon and her son. He wants to take the place of her husband, who's, very old. He wants to, like, insert himself into society. We see this a couple times in the movie. He always wants to take the lazy way out, Barry. Even though he is a strong human, in my opinion, he's fought in wars. He's always kind of willing to take the beating. I mean, life really beat him down. He does have horrible luck, but he tries to, like, almost make up for it in a lot of ways is the best way I can put it. He's always just trying to, like, take the easy way into getting what he wants. He wants to literally insert himself into somebody else's life. But you can just see the pain behind him because nothing has ever really gone according to what in his mind is the plan. So when he finally does have a son, unfortunately that son has to pay for the sins of the father. I mean, the way he dies in a horse riding accident, which is, I think a nice little callback to the very beginning about how his father died over some horses. It's like the family is cursed. Like, there's no way to escape this. He loved his son. He cherished his son. But he treated his stepson like a piece of shit this entire time, because the stepson can clearly see right through everything that this guy's doing. But he could just give some of the love that he gives to his son, to his stepson. And, maybe things would be better if he was just a little bit of a better person. He just wants to be this big aristocrat and be respected when he hasn't earned that respect. And I love that this movie illustrates all of this to us. Again, the last duel at the end of this movie between the stepson and him, it's great. And a lot of the true acting is done through the facial expressions because Stanley Kubrick purposely, like, withheld emotion. He didn't want, like, big melodramatic scenes. He told all the actors this, and then it shows throughout the entire film. Obviously the narration is doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the exposition, and I really like that. Narration doesn't always work, but it works perfectly in this film. Even though it is essentially giving away what's going to happen in the near future in this film, and kind of softening the blow, but it all works. It all works in this film, and that's why Barry Lyndon is one of Stanley Kubrick's masterpieces. It didn't do well at the time. It only made $20 million. Obviously, it won for Best Cinematography at the Academy Awards. If it was going to win anything, it deserved that. Is it the best film of 1975 compared to films like Jaws, One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Dog Day Afternoon? In my opinion, no, it's still not a perfect film. You do feel that pacing. I feel like, we could have done, trimmed a little bit here and there. But on the other hand, I don't know if I would cut anything if it was me. How do you cut anything from this film? It is an absolute masterpiece. It's just, personal taste, the pacing of it. I don't think that works entirely throughout the entire film. So if I was going to compare it to the other films that were nominated for Best Picture in 1975, and obviously the winner, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I do believe those films are better overall than Barry Lyndon, but this is still one of Stanley Kubrick's best films, and if you're a true cinephile, it's absolutely one you have to check out just for the cinematography. Like I said, it's absolutely breathtaking when it comes to the images that you will see in this film. I just understand that people might be a little bit bored by it, but either way, check this one out if you could. Maybe you want to check it out on this new Criterion 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about right now.
He seems to me little more than a common opportunist.
And here it is, Barry Lyndon on 4K Blu-ray, and they gave us a digipack. And what's interesting about that is I had the previously released Barry Lyndon Blu-ray right here, and this Blu-ray is the exact same Blu-ray that you'll see packed into this new 4K packaging. The special features disc is the exact same as well. So when you come inside this new digipack, which I don't know if Criterion's ever done this before. Usually they just give us the exact same packaging and just add the third disc in there. Maybe they felt like it would give us more room. I don't know, because I've complained about that in the past. They put the third disc in their regular packaging. I feel like give us a little bit something extra, because, now when you go around this thing, it looks a lot better. You got the binding right here now is in green, looks nice. Up top, the black and red and green, I really like that. It actually helps it to stand out a little bit more. Of course, it is a digipack, so, it's cardboard, and that gets worn down over time. When you come inside, though, There's your reading material. Again, all that's exactly the same. The only difference on the interior now, you'll have that third 4K Blu-ray disc over here. But when you come around on the back, there's some new exterior artwork as well. So I truly love it. I loved everything that they did with the packaging here. Criterion never does this. I've complained in the past, like, at least give us an upgrade to the packaging, because the only upgrade you're going to be getting in here, if you have that previous release of Barry Lyndon, is you're only going to be getting an upgrade to the visuals. Everything else is exactly the same. And for me, that was no problem, because like I said, this is one of the best shot films of all time. So I wanted to get a 4K Blu-ray that was really going to push the limits of my OLED TV. This is a movie that has always looked good no matter which way you spin it, just because it's one of the best shot films of all time, filmed on location in Ireland, England, and Germany, and it really shows on the screen. It's just something we don't do it nowadays, and the cinematography is what stands out the most. So for it to be upgraded to HDR10 and Dolby Vision, I had to have it. I couldn't wait to grab it, and of course, getting it through the Criterion 50% off sale at Barnes & Noble, it's an absolute steal. And again, like I said, all the extras are exactly the same. It's the same exact special features disc, but those extras are fantastic. You get a making of, basically a look back on the cinematography, and all that stuff is great. You have like old audio interviews with Stanley Kubrick and John Alcott. I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I loved every single extra. I'm glad it gets its own special features disc. It makes you appreciate the film even more. That's why I'm a big extras junkie. I know not everybody is, but when you watch the movie, then you dive into the extras and you see all of the effort that went into making this film, I admire it, and it makes me appreciate the movie so much more, and it makes me love the film. It's things like that, and that's why I think extras are so important. Again, I know not everyone cares, but that's a great extras disc. Again, it is the same extra, so I gotta give it a little bit of a knock because we get nothing new. Same thing with the audio. The audio is exactly the same. It's good audio. It's a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1. It's just don't expect an upgrade. You could also listen to it with the mono track. The audio is very good. This is, obviously a very dialogue-heavy film. The score is great of the time. It's supposed to really feel like of that time. It works very well. Everything comes in crisp and clear. Not many complaints about the audio at all. I think, if you liked it the last time, you'll like it this time around. And again, that Blu-ray that's packed in here, it's the exact same Blu-ray from the past. I would, put the old Blu-ray in to compare it to the 4K. Then I put the old Blu-ray, then I put the Blu-ray that I used to have in, and it would just say resume playback. It's the exact same disc, no different. Those two discs are no different than the previous release. It's the 4K disc that gets the upgrade, and that's where you're going to get Dolby Vision and HDR. And yeah, it's a huge upgrade in my opinion. And the Blu-ray is not bad, but when you look at the 4K now compared to the Blu-ray, it makes the Blu-ray look a little bit shitty in my opinion. But again, I expected this to look great on 4K, even though Criterion a couple times in the past, they would change things around with the color timing, which they didn't do here, and it would hurt the 4K release despite the fact, the HDR was doing some real good work. Paris, Texas is a good example for me. They changed it just too much to where I can't really appreciate the 4K Blu-ray, whereas in this case, it makes the film look better. So already one of the best looking films of all time, it looks even better now on 4K Blu-ray, mainly those candlelight scenes. I mean, they are absolutely stunning. He shot those with real candlelight. They worked their ass off to get those shots, and the results speak for themselves because we'll probably never get a movie that looks this good. I understand people probably don't really truly love, not everybody loves a good period piece costume drama, but like I said in my film review, I'm coming around to them as far as I'm learning to really love them, and just sitting there looking at shots like that, I mean, your jaw hits the floor. You gotta gather it back up because it's true beauty. To go for a shot like this, two of the best shots in this film reward you for watching the entire movie because they come essentially towards the very end of this 3-hour epic. Two of the best shots in film history, in my opinion, and they just look absolutely glorious and stunning 4K. Again, though, would I recommend you picking this up on 4K Blu-ray? I'd say you definitely should pick it up in the 50% off sale if you already have Barry Lyndon on Blu-ray, because again, you're only going to be getting an upgrade in the visual department. So if you're somebody who's not truly in love with Barry Lyndon and you can wait to pick it up, get it right now while the 50% off sale is going on at Barnes & Noble, or wait for a future sale just because, it's going to be a little expensive without that. And if you already have the previous release discs and you've already seen all the extras, I'd say, hey, wait, check it out in December later this year, maybe get a Christmas present. But if you're somebody who doesn't own Barry Lyndon at all, and you've never seen any of these extras and you haven't seen the film, or you've seen the film once and you want to experience it in the best way possible, this is definitely worth it at full price because they definitely put all of their effort into those visuals and the results speak for themselves. What would I rate Barry Lyndon on a score of 1 to 10 in my opinion though? I'm going to still give Barry Lyndon an 8.5 out of 10 despite the fact that those visuals are absolutely stunning. It is one of the best visually released 4K Blu-rays of 2025. you know, I got to do a little knock against it because we didn't get upgrades anywhere else, even though the packaging did receive an upgrade. I do still feel like I can't give it like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 when we didn't upgrade the audio or give us any new extras. Unfortunately, that's going to hurt people who already have the disc. But if you're somebody who doesn't have the disc, this bumps up more to like a 9.5 out of 10 because this is definitely one of Criterion's best releases out there right now. And to get the great visual upgrade, it only adds to what was already a very good release, in my opinion. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel like John Doe Juggalo and Ben Rondo, you can do that. Or you can even become a channel director like Stone Gas Man, Nicholas Head, Uncle V, Kevin Kruger, and the legendary Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews. But of course, you can also bump it up to the channel bankroll member like Mr. Smelly Potato. But if you got no money to throw away, guys, don't worry about it at all. We just hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.